My first computer was an Apple IIe. I loved that little thing so much. My mom brought it into the house. We're early 1980s, Washington, D.C. My mother, my sister, and me, and the dogs. Can't leave out the animals in the house. That machine was a gateway to what my whole future would end up being. And I think it gave me a huge leg up in terms of being relevant to the emerging times. So I'm very grateful for the creators at Apple, more grateful to my mother for seeing that. In fact, my mom used to take me to Apple user group meetings in person, physical gatherings of people who loved like the Macintosh computer. And they were called, it was Washington Apple Pie. PI was the name of the club. I was a very, very early Apple nerd. I mean, I remember Dr. J versus Larry Bird as my most favorite. I can't remember the word processor that I used on that thing. Um, oh, and then there was some kind of Pong. There was some kind of Pong thing. It was a great gaming device early on. Not until I got into the PC era will I really remember distinct programs. Word Perfect really stands out in stark relief. The blue screen, the white text, writing papers for school. That was a big deal.
What pushed you over to the PC era?
I don't remember what pushed me to the PC era. I think it was a cost issue. I think my mother had more access to PC hardware, and I was really such a young kid. She made these decisions. So the shortest answer is my mom pushed me to the PC era, but I've really got into my tinkering days. Like I don't remember manipulating the Macintosh, any of them. But once I was on like a Windows-based PC, and I remember even before Windows on DOS, you know, adding memory and buying modules, installing the modems, and like climbing that baud count from 24 to 96 to 14.4 to 19.2. I mean, we had a computer room in the house, and I would go there to like transport to another world. And bulletin boards was what really kept me hooked. A few video games, and then schoolwork. I was in ultimately word processing, Windows 3.0, actually Windows 2 point something. I remember that. And then the leap to 3.1 was a huge deal, and obviously 95. So yeah, the PC was my main machine through college. And then once I got into the adulthood world, I started going back to Mac, and I haven't, as my primary machine, haven't been a PC person in a while now. Yeah, my first online experience was proudly not AOL or CompuServe or Prodigy. It was old school dial up bulletin board Wild West systems. I remember dialing in. There's a Champaign-Urbana, University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana. They operated a pretty major, like publicly accessible BBS. I remember dialing into my local public library, Montgomery County Public Library outside of DC, and then finding holes in their system to be able to access a Unix prompt and then telnet out to other places and hang out on like Gopher sites to find knowledge and find massive multiplayer online games like what mugs. The game I remember is Dominion,
Mm.
which was a world building game. You could print out the map, but it was in ASCII art, right? This was like very low res, and mostly you were command lining it, and it was giving you like your inventory and the options you had to head toward this direction in the universe to this parsec. So some kind of galactic conquest thing without pictures. Active imagination was heavily encouraged.
By the way, when you were dialing into University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana, that's literally the time when Mark Andreessen and them were there creating the Mosaic web browser.
A very, very basic Atari as my first gaming console. It was an early one though. I mean, the joystick was a stick vertically, emerging from a square pad with a single red button. Like whatever that thing was, that was what I had. And then I didn't have consoles. for a very long time. My friends, I'd have to visit them to use Nintendo or Sega or Neo Geo or something like that. And even the later Ataris. And I always had computers and was trying to do computer gaming and online games, playing Duke Nukem and Doom and other Mean Streets. I remember playing this game called Mean Streets
Mm.
a lot in like the late 80s. Um, but they had me and consoles. It's actually one of the regrets, maybe, or one of the things I missed out on as a kid. I didn't have a console and we didn't have cable TV during my childhood. I bought a cell phone in September of 1999 out of desperation. I had been stranded at the airport on a return flight from overseas to get to my first day of work in Boston, and everyone around me who had a cell phone got vouchers, got hotel, got booked on a better flight. I had none of these things, so I had to basically like hitchhike with a group of people, and we collectively like rented a bus, overnight bus, and I went to the Sprint PCS store the very next day
Mm.
and I bought my first cell phone, which is my first cell phone number, which I've kept. I still have a Boston cell phone number. It was a Sprint PCS branded phone. It had a monochromatic, like greenish screen. It had T9 text input and a little flap to cover the buttons so you didn't push them accidentally in your. It was a candy bar style phone. It wasn't the Motorola StarTAC flip phone. It was a solid candy bar. You just flip the dial pad cover off to make it feel like you were speaking into something with a little more capture. I'm pretty sure it was E.T. The theater in Silver Spring, Maryland. I don't know why I'm remembering that so specifically. Uh, yeah, the scene with the kids leap like flying off that ramp and just getting into the air and whoa, ET phone home. Like I've seen ET many times. I saw it a lot during my childhood, and I am 90% certain that was the first theatrical movie experience of my life. It was a cassette. The first music I ever bought with my own money was not a record. I was too late for that, but it wasn't a CD. I was early for that. It was a cassette, and certainly remember buying DOS effects in the early 90s. That probably wasn't the first, but it's the oldest I can remember on such short notice. And I remember listening to it in my Walkman on the way across town to school. I lived in DC, so I was 12 years old when I bought this, maybe 13 at the most. Yeah. Oh, DOS effects. I'm gonna pull that up after we're done. Thriller tour, first concert. I was there, RFK Stadium, nosebleeds. What?
That is amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah. My mom and a coworker of hers got tickets. My sister was the biggest Michael Jackson fan that there ever was. I challenge anyone on this earth to have been a bigger fan than my sister. And we knew all the lyrics and the dance moves. And ooh, confession. I was a very small child. It was way past my bedtime. We were in nearly the last row of these upper deck seats. So I started falling asleep. I fell asleep. I did fall asleep at my first ever and only Michael Jackson concert because the color palette of all the people down on like the field itself looked a lot like the pattern on our rug at home. And it was just the most inviting thing. And I just wanted to like curl up after singing my face off because I'd earned it. Yeah. Sorry, MJ. 1994 Isuzu Trooper Burgundy. I called it my Apocalypse Mobile. I bought it for $1 from my sister. We had it notarized. Ended up driving it to Boston, and I had that car for it could handle anything. It was the boxy Isuzu Trooper, and that was our family vehicle. My mom had that car, my sister had that car, and then she got a new version, and I bought her old one off of her. And I had it until I moved to New York, and 6 months after living there, it had been broken into twice. And I thought someone else wants this car a lot more than me, so I donated it to like 1-8 7 Cars for Kids because I remember the jingle from the New York Tintin
No,
win.
if you've ever lived in New York, no one can forget that jingle.
I was like,
Uh,
where am I going to do with this car? Oh, there's a song for that. Actually, money for service, it might have been due to my Windows PC. I was good with the word processing and with the layout programs, and I made flyers for my mom's friends. And I don't know what they were for. Maybe a yard sale was something functional like that, but it was all very foreign to them how you could do that. And they thought it was like the most exotic thing ever. And I was like, oh, you just put the picture here, move it around, boom, boom, boom. So yeah, that was probably the first time I got paid. First return job consistently was like yard work for my Taekwondo instructor, removing turpentine from some of her materials without proper respiratory protection. Favorite gadget of all time. I keep coming back to the single purpose mobile device. It was a iRiver MP3 player slash recorder. And it was like half of a Snicker bar in terms of its dimensions. It could fit in the grip of your fist in a pocket. It had jacks for external microphone and headphones. And I used it for music as a music player. I used it for audiobooks, and I was a very early Audible subscriber, and like transferring the media was such a thing. But I used it to record. I used it to record conversations with my mom on road trips. I used it to record every stand-up comedy set I did for years, like probably a 2 year period in Boston. I had all of my sets and I'd play them back and listen to them. It was the most useful thing that has been subsumed by pretty much any mobile device I've had in the past 10 years could do that and 100 other things. But man, I loved that thing so much. And the interface was a little circular dial pad. It had somehow very sophisticated UX for a thing with physical buttons on it. And you kind of had a little teeny joystick, which brings me back to the Atari 2600. If it had a joystick, it's probably going to be my favorite gadget. Thank you for having me. It's my first time on First Ones and probably my last because if it's going to be First Ones, it'd be
we
the same
can't
as
do second ones.
second ones.